Beautiful, ain't it?
What is?
I didn't think you'd be on this soon.
Well, I just couldn't stop walking until I got here.
What are you thinking about?
I was thinking that we ought to get married.
This is rough work, gentlemen. Not just on the body. We just cut down trees that have been here for 500 years. Upsets a man's soul whether you recognize it or not.
You think that she knows that I'm her daddy?
Deep down, she knows it. Even if she doesn't know she knows it yet.
Hey guys, thanks so much for coming. Just checking you can all hear us both okay?
Hello, hello.
Very good. Adolpho, thank you so much for joining us for your absolutely beautiful film, Train Dreams, which this is the fourth time I've watched it. The first time was mostly crying. Second time I had to go and hug my kids. They were watching Frozen, which sort of spoiled the magic slightly. It's such a special film, and watching it this time, it really struck me as like an incredibly powerful metaphor for working in the film industry, which I think there's a lot of people in this room will not only sympathise with leaving, working with strange people, coming back, missing your family. There's also a lot of people in this room will enjoy the idea of just taking a camera into beautiful natural light for only a 29-day shoot. So I'm super excited to talk to you about this film. But it's always interesting to hear how people got their start. What was it that brought you into cinematography initially?
Well, first of all, thank you. Thanks for doing this. I love your work. It's an honor to have you asking me questions.
It's not.
Especially Silo. I think it's like one of the best shows out there. So, thank you. And what was the question again? Well,
how did you get started?
Yeah. I'm from Brazil, and I feel like since I'm like 12 years old, I knew I wanted to work with films. Poor mom, right? Like it's like people. When you have that dream, it's like I feel like it's always difficult, especially in Brazil. There's not a lot of an industry there for it. But I went to film school in São Paulo, and since day one, almost like I started working in whatever I could find, like as a PA or as a third AD or anything like that. So I was just trying to actually have as much experience as possible on a set to figure out how that thing worked and also what I liked inside a set. I didn't come from a place that I loved photography and I went to cinematography. I just loved movies and I wanted to do that. And then in film school and being on sets, I realized that the camera and the lighting was what I liked the most.
Bit.
I agree. But that was kind of it. And then I started to shoot like really small things, you know, like a music video for a friend that has a band or a short film. And while working in bigger stuff like commercials and stuff, doing other things, and it got to a point where that shitty music video led to something else and a short and a commercial. And then I shot a bunch of commercials back in Brazil, and that evolved to shooting commercials in other places of South America, Latin America, Europe, US, and in the meantime I was starting to work on some longer format stuff. I shot a documentary, a few features in Brazil, and then everything kind of just evolved from there. Like then I did a movie in Argentina, then a movie in Portugal, then yeah.
It's really the documentaries work is interesting because it's really striking. Presumably, this is all projects you're operating yourself.
Yeah.
There's such a strong eye for finding a frame with you know in the natural world there. I can see how the documentary work would have really helped with that.
Yeah, it does. I feel like it is from both the fact that the first projects I worked with for a lot of years didn't have a lot of money, and it was just like maybe a camera was all I had, and not even a good camera. So I feel like the way I learned to do things was to try to shape light with what was available, either like natural light or like a lamp or whatever was there. And I feel like I did that for so many years that when it came to the point that I was shooting bigger stuff, that I could have lights or whatever. And then I started using a lot of those things, and I looked at it at some point and thought like, but why am I doing, like, this is much worse than what I used to do when I didn't have anything. And I think obviously depends on the situation, right? I feel like there's times that you need it, but in general, I felt like it's not because you can that you should use it. And yeah, and also with the documentaries, like that feature documentary that I did, that it's kind of the reason that Clint actually reached out for Jockey and the whole reason that I got to work with him on this. It's something that also teaches me a lot on how to like try to plan as much as possible to be at the places at the right time, because then within that you can kind of play around with the uncontrollable, right? Like with documentary, like people doing whatever they want, no marks, no not of necessarily planned things, but if you are at the right place at the right time, it's kind of easier to adapt.
And you have to know your source material incredibly well. It can't just be turning up and creating everything with lighting and camera. You need to sort of intrinsically understand the sort of that eye of the documentary maker. That's interesting. So Clint reached out to you, Jockey, another beautiful film, which was 5 years ago now?
I think so, yeah. We shot in 2019. I think it came out 2020, 21, something like that.
And when you first met Clint, was it clear you were sort of birds of a feather when it came to the visual language that you both responded to?
Yes, I feel like we have a lot of the same taste in like the way we see the world, but also like references and films we like and directors we admire and stuff like that. And the reason he reached out is because when he was about to do Jockey, he really wanted to find someone. I feel like he tried to call a few people that didn't really work, and then he came to me. But the main reason was he wanted to find someone that could blend documentary and fiction, because Jockey was a movie that we did with basically like 10 people, and a really limited budget that we like shot on a real horse track with like a lot of non-actors, basically just bringing a couple actors to leave that thing. And for some reason, we ended up doing less of documentary than initially expected, but we had a lot of that language on that movie, which is also what we try to translate into this somehow. Like there's so many aspects of Jockey that we loved in terms of like having a smaller footprint, giving freedom to the actors, not being stuck with marks, and having freedom for them to move around the locations and get out or in, whatever they want to do. And that really came from Jockey almost just because it was what we have. And then figuring out how to do that on Train Dreams was the big challenge, because then suddenly your crew is much bigger than 10 people. You have more than 100 people, you have trucks, it's a period movie. So there's a lot of challenges of trying to make it work. But I feel like both Clint and I had really a strong feeling about how that would work well in this movie. And we often like don't even need to talk anymore, you know, like and which is also good, because we have a lot of the common taste and always kind of like agreeing on almost everything. Also, when we don't agree, we know like it's a problem and we need to hear each other out. And I feel like the fact that we started kind of together also somehow building a language together is also amazing, because there's less boundaries, you know, there's like, oh, this is my department, this is yours. Sure. Like it's a more open conversation about like everything that's happening.
People are always really interested in how sort of your pre-production process works. So having done Jockey, and that you have that moment with the director where there's the director you meet in the interview, and then there's the director you meet on set, but you've had that by this point with Clint, so you know the real Clint, and so as you start going into pre-production on this, were you involved? Were you talking to Clint before he started writing the script?
Yeah, I feel like since Jockey, we were just like looking forward to the next one. I feel like doing another movie is also the best way to deal with the frustrations of the past one, because you can like try to
On the next one,
on the next one we're gonna make it. We're not gonna do the same mistakes, and then you of course do them all over again. But we really wanted to work together again, and he was trying to figure out what to do, and he was offered Train Dreams to adapt and direct it. And that was amazing because he was sending me his first drafts, and it's so good to have the time to think about the movie and not necessarily just think about how you need to shoot it, and like really absorb the story, talk about it. Like without, I try to do that anytime I read the script, like not even think about the shots or the scenes or how they're gonna look, and just see if it's a good script and if I connect with it. But on this one, I had so much time to do that and to assimilate the whole story. It's exactly what you said, like it's a story that feels like our lives in a way. So
it really feels like a film that sort of speaks with one creative voice, and it's striking. Sort of all departments kind of really smashed it. It's beautifully edited. The sound editing is remarkable. The score is amazing. When you're, is Clint sort of leading all that? How do you work on set? Is he putting marks down with a finder, being this is the shot I want? Or are you coming to him with frames? Are you talking to him during shots? How does that work as you're the sort of sole operator?
I feel like we always try to like have really clear conversations about the concept in advance, like to spend that time during prep and really create the language we want and create our rules, sort of say, for the movie. Then when it comes to set, what I always try to do, because he's really he's also the writer, but I feel like he's really into spending time with the actors a lot and really like making that work, and often rewriting things with them and trying to figure new ways to do things. I try as much as possible to make sure everything is ready for him, so he can spend that time with the actors and come in with that and focus on that. So we often talk about, okay, that's the shot, but not necessarily like this is the lens, and we don't spend much time on those conversations. I try to show him stuff and see if he's happy with it, and sometimes he'll say, no, I don't feel it needs to be something else, but I'm always trying to make it as ready as possible for him.
Do you review things together? Do you screen dailies, or don't have time?
No, we didn't have any time on this. We're often trying to solve the next problems more than having time to watch it. And to be honest, watching dailies is something that makes me suffer so much. I just did a movie that the director, we shot on film, VistaVision, so we kind of had to watch dailies. Because we also needed to make sure that everything was really fine, and it's a process for him. And
it's just a focus puller sweating in the corner.
And I was dying like the whole time. Like it's that moment where you feel like the whole room is just judging you, and because everybody saw each other's work already, right? The only thing they haven't seen it's your work, and it's like everybody's just there like watching that. So it is a suffering experience to me, to be honest. Like anytime I hear people say, "Then we watch dailies, it was so much fun," I was like, "Oh my God, not for me." I don't know. It's just like
you shot this film in 29 days, is that right? And seemingly of those 29 days, the most beautiful time of day. So talk to us about what that schedule looked like. It was presumably very tight on what you wanted to achieve.
It was tight regardless. I think 29 days for a period of this scale, shooting all over the state was tricky. And the good thing is that when you have 29 days, you just have 2 hours to do each scene regardless, even if it's like good or bad lighting. So you don't need to necessarily plan for like big chunks of scenes that are gonna mean light continuity problems and stuff like that. So that's kind of good. But it was mostly about scheduling around trying to protect the exteriors as much as possible. We shot everything on location. All the sets were built from scratch on location. So like that cabin is built on location, the fire tower is built on location. So by Alex Schaller, our production
I
designer.
was trying to work out if it was built where you'd marked out with the stones. Like they really built that
No,
fast, or if
no,
it's
yeah,
further.
it was right next to
Okay.
it. So we we kind of tried. Also, we had to find. It was tricky. We had to find a location for where they find the place, a location for the house, and a location for the house when it's burned, and they all need to look the same.
It's
so
so
it was
beautiful
tricky.
that it begins with those white stones and
Yeah.
it goes back to just the ash at the
Yeah.
end. It's very poetic. And so talk to us about the natural light, like it's sort of masterful use of natural light throughout. And I think, you know, first of all, you know, is it, you know, to what extent are you helping it at all? Is it all natural, or is there assistance sometimes?
It's all natural light, especially like the exteriors. We used light basically in one scene, one of the big fires, like the wall fire, because we couldn't actually burn the forest down. And we wouldn't. It's not because producers say no. But besides that, everything is real fire, real candles, real gas lamps, real campfire. We had some systems just to like kind of like, especially for like the moments he's in the cabin with Joe and Felicity. We wanted those moments to be kind of like magical in a way, like he's remembering all those moments in a nicer way than they were actually. So for some of those things, we had we would call it the 1920s sky panel, which was basically the size of a S60.
Yeah.
That we would just put a lot of candles inside with like a reflective surface and a diffusion in front of you of it. So it would be the size of an S60. So it would be real firelight and the real flickering and the real temperature, but just softer, and also not, because one tricky thing with candles is that it looks beautiful, but when you have a lot of candles, you can create so many shadows, and that's not necessarily pleasant on faces and stuff. So that came handy for some of those situations to avoid that. But yeah, everything is fire, and that means a lot of work with our department, and they were amazing, providing like double wicks, triple wicks, gas lamps. All the campfires are real. Everything was done in combination with everybody else, and I feel like that goes to the schedule too. Suddenly, then you need to be like, AD probably hates me now because I was like on his neck the whole time, just like trying to make it work for everybody. It's hard because obviously I know the schedule is not done just around lighting. There's a lot of reasons to schedule everything, but we also wanted to make it work for lighting. So it was like a I don't know how many versions of schedule we had, and in the end we did a lot of splits, and that helped. So we would start the day at 2 p.m. and then shoot into night.
And did you recce the location? Did you manage to recce them in different times of day, or did you have to kind of take your best guess what was going to look right with sun paths and?
Some were very far away and isolated, so we couldn't spend a lot of time there. But I was just trying to see what the sun did and kind of guess. I also feel like there's something good about seeing the locations in the worst light possible. Yeah. Because if they work on that light, and then it's gonna anything you see at like the good light, it's gonna look much better. So it's good to see them.
I was enjoying that in the sort of halcyon days of frontiersmen. Everything we only existed in beautiful backlight and side lights. It was only later on when mankind destroys the world that we get the sort of top light and. I thought the flame, all of the fire sections was so effective. This sort of like, it's structured in the film as these little confessional moments, and the kind of inky blackness behind them was so. I could see it, could be tempting. I would find it tempting to be, I'll have a nice moon box over all there, but the just striking faces against the blackness. It's real like shadows on the cave wall. I thought it was absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, I feel like going back to what you said, like there was something especially with his memories, his family memories. And because the whole concept behind the movie was like memories and like being almost like going through pictures of someone's life, and the fact that you remember something not necessarily the way it was. It's just like memories are constantly different from what actually happened. We wanted all those moments in the house with the family to feel more magical than maybe they necessarily were.
Yeah.
Because he remembers it in a sweeter way. So we had a lot of care to try to make sure that everything felt magical in a way, with like shooting at dusk or sunset. And then the first time you actually see a high sun is when he gets home and everything is burned. So you have that impact of, okay, that's not how actually it was. It's just his memories from it. But also, that's the thing with like being as naturalistic as possible with everything. Also, then makes like a moonlight tricky to fit in the movie, because it's just like everything feels real, and then suddenly a moonlight that is stronger than this campfire here that wouldn't necessarily fit in the movie. And I'm always trying to kind of find other solutions. I feel like I love what Dickens does, for example. That is just like always trying to find a motivation that is not moonlight. It's like you put a gas station in the back, and stuff that can motivate other sources than the moonlight.
It feels like the movie's quite concerned with, the virtue of sort of simplicity and the way you've shot it. Occasionally, it is simplicity a virtue in terms of how you approach it as well. It feels like it's quite freeing to be filming and not be pulling lighting trucks and things around. You can just find the most beautiful light, the most beautiful kind of time of day.
And that helps also with the schedule, to be honest, because whenever you're shooting that scene, you don't need to stop to change the side and relight it and change the crew to those things just don't happen, because it is what it is. So you don't need to send the actors back to their trailers, bring the stand-ins, there's so much that I feel like we sometimes lose just because of that. And like even for them, for performance and the whole thing, that actually helped on making it possible in 29 days. So in the beginning we were scared, but then after we started shooting that, we saw how much we could get in like those 2 hours. We would often even have like time to spare to like improvise something and just like grab little moments of them with the family and running around the chickens, stuff that were not really planned, that we just like went with it.
The way you've composed the film, it's beautiful 3:2 aspect ratio, really helps you bring sort of, nature is such a huge character in the film, and it's really striking the kind of different time scales that you manage to. You've got, his own life, which feels both ephemeral and brief, and kind of he sort of represents everyone, sort of like a little blink in the dark and he's gone. But then you constantly, in every frame, you've got these huge trees, you're framing for the trees, you're almost doing over the shoulders of trees sometimes. And then by the end of the film, that's been, momentarily, that whole top of the frame is really striking when it's the sort of freak show, and it's just suddenly that top of the frame is empire and it's neon and it's become sort of man-made. But how are you finding those frames, and how are you sort of dealing with nature as a character in the film?
Well, the whole reason we decided to go 3:2 was like to evoke that memory lane through like pictures. Like we got to this metaphor of like the movie's about like it's almost like you found that box full of pictures and you're going through those pictures. They're randomly put together out of order, and you like trying to figure out that person's life through those still images. And because we were looking also a lot of like pictures from the era, from like 1920s and 30s, like from loggers, but also like Dorothea Lange was a big influence, especially the Great Depression pictures. So we just felt like that aspect ratio could help on evoking the memory lane, like just because that's how you like when you see your own pictures from your childhood, they're usually on that aspect ratio, for example. But that also helped a lot with nature, like having a taller aspect ratio with like framing the trees and making all that be part of what the characters are feeling. Like I feel like that's something that came a lot from seeing Dorothea's pictures and the fact that the environment around those faces were so important in the picture to kind of evoke the emotions that those characters are having and how where they are and who they are has a lot to do with where they are and vice versa. And we really wanted to do this here, you know, this whole relationship of like humans and nature and how that environment affect them, and when everything is beautiful and idyllic, that affects him in a good way, and when everything is like gray and burn, that also affects him. So it was also a good way to allow this composition. So often we have a lot of headroom, we always have space around, like it's really rare in the movie that you see a close-up that is just like...
I love the scene of the criminal being caught and shot that you play all just as one beautifully staged scene.
Yeah.
Was that something that you plan to do it like that right from the start?
Yes and no. Like there's a few scenes in the movie that like we planned as just a shot, and that was one that like we wanted to do it that way. At some point, you know what, maybe we should do some coverage, which is not really like what Clint likes to do too. Like we often like feel like we spend more our time trying to like one good shot than like 3 shitty shots, you know. So it's just like trying to spend time on one thing. But for that one, we actually wanted more shots, but that was the last thing we were going to shoot on that day, and everything else delayed, and we didn't have a lot of time to shoot that. We had like half an hour, and then we decided, you know what, let's go back to the initial idea. Let's do one shot and concentrate on doing few good takes of
It's good to be reminded that you can, in fact, do a scene without just having a close-up of every person.
And I think in the end, it's much better. You know, when I look back at it, I was like, oh, thank God we didn't have the time. You know, you never know.
You lean into the frame. And I'm sure people want to know about the format you chose for the film in the end. Was there much debate about that, or how did you land on the camera you used?
You mean like digital versus... We shot on the Alexa 35, and I think we briefly discussed film, but we didn't spend much time with that because we thought about like all the things we would lose shooting film in terms of like using natural light, actually just working with fire. There's a lot of scenes that are lit by like a single candle and stuff like that we wouldn't necessarily be able to do with film. And the fact that there's so much of that movie that is lived in that house of like them just like moving around the house and basically like me following and running around them with the camera for like sometimes 40 minutes nonstop just to grab a few moments that would also not be possible on film.
Did I notice that you were doing quite a lot of different shutter angles throughout the film? Is that something that you've...
Yeah. Well, yeah, I was just talking about that. It's funny because the first way to answer that is that I feel like I just missed the class where people say that you're not supposed to touch your shutter. And then at some point I learned that, and I was like, okay, interesting, why exactly? And I never really understood why. I understood like, okay, that's how people usually do, and that's what our eyes are used to see, but I always saw it as another tool. Like depth of field, like all the tools we have to tell a story. And especially on this film, because we wanted to evoke that still photography feel to it, we really wanted to bring back that feeling of like some memories are really sharp, some memories are blurred. Like there's that whole sequence that it's really blurred when you see the fire through her perspective. That was shot at like 5-6 frames per second with a 356 shutter. So we wanted to have those differences between how memories are perceived in a way through that photographic aspect to it, but also to try to make it as almost like as real as possible. It's already like a period movie. We wanted to like remove the some maybe like the cinematic layers from it,
Yeah.
and try to look as grounded as possible. So having like a sharper image for the daytime stuff and more blurred for the nighttime stuff, like our eyes kind of actually see things. So it is both a thing that I feel like I just started doing it in the beginning by mistake, and somehow I like try. I like.
It's working.
Yeah,
It's beautiful.
I mean, yeah, thank you.
In the film, the loggers are sort of remembered briefly by their boots nailed onto a tree that sort of gradually gets absorbed. Is that how films feel to you? Do you feel like, what's your legacy? Will these all of our work be gradually eaten by nature eventually? Enjoyed for a brief moment?
That's a very profound question. I wasn't expecting it. I was expecting to talk about ISO and stuff like that.
We can do ISO as well.
No, it's fine. I think so. I feel like there is, I mean, going back to the theme of the movie also, like how much nature takes over, but how much we affect nature and nature affects us back. And I feel like that's a big thing in the movie, and the whole reason we wanted to make nature be a character in the movie. And I feel like it's also like the tree absorbing the boot maybe, and I'm just saying this out loud now without thinking much of it, but I also think it's a good metaphor for when you do a movie and then you give it to the world, like then suddenly it's from the world, like it's for everybody else, and then people assimilate that in different way and they take over what you did, and not necessarily the way you intended, but I think it's
They only have the boots and they never know the logger.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
I think we have time for some questions from the room. There's a mic we'd love to get to you. The gentleman in the front row here, if we can.
Congratulations. This absolutely must win the Oscar. There's no two ways about
Thank you
that.
very much.
I wanted to ask you about the magic hour in the tower sequence. How was that?
Which one?
It's in the tower, and it's magic, what Jack Cardiff called the magic hour. And I wanted to ask you how that was set up, and what did you have in mind? But you got your Arri Alexa 35, you got your aspect ratio there, the Academy, and so you're setting it up. And how did that work?
So
how was it set up?
For that scene, we actually was one of the rare scenes that we actually planned to start shooting it earlier, because it's a very long dialogue.
Right.
And we were afraid it's like also like they talking about deep stuff, and so we actually started shooting that much earlier. And then after like a couple, like the sun was high and they were supposed to be looking at like something beautiful and the sunset, but they could barely open their eyes, you know, both Carrie and Joe. And at some point we were like, after a couple takes, we were like, should we stop and just wait for the right light, which is like big, you know, like producers panic and everybody's like, oh my God, are you sure? You don't want to just do it? And at that point in the shooting, because that was like by the end of the shoot, we felt confident that we could do it. Mm-hmm. So we actually just waited. We like sat down for like an hour or something like that, and waited for the right lighting. And then when we came back to it, we did a couple takes in each other side, and we did that wide shot that you mentioned, and everything just felt right. Like even for the actors, they could actually feel it better. They were actually looking at like a sunset and could it just like worked somehow. And I feel like a lot of times in this movie things kind of happen that way, just like okay, let's try to be cautious, and then in the end it's like, no, it's fine, let's wait for the right right light, right feeling. And I was really lucky to have a cast that not only embraced it and were like, no, let's not do that because we need 7 takes or at least something like that. I feel like there's something also when they know that you have one shot, like couple takes, then they can deliver everything on those takes and don't need to like save it for all other takes.
Good. What an achievement, though.
Thank you. And I mean, Carrie Condon and Joe Edgerton, you know, like there's not so much I can mess with that combination.
Some more questions at the back. Hand shot straight up on this side.
Thank you. Indeed, a very beautiful movie.
Thank you.
I have a question which is about how you mentioned that rather than a technical limitation, it was more of a deliberate choice to have the natural lighting throughout the movie. What's striking is that the tools and conditions which are required to create an aesthetic like this were available, let's say, 20 and 30 years back from now. So why and how does this approach feel more accessible or more widely embraced in the current times when filmmakers could technically have achieved it back then? And if they could have, like, are there a few examples that you can give to us that you personally felt were very close to this kind of experience back in 20, 30 years ago?
Well, it's hard because I wasn't shooting 30 years ago, so it's hard to know, but...
The groups tell me it was much better back then.
True.
4-hour days.
Yeah, I always hear good stories, and you were allowed to smoke on set and do like crazy things. But I feel like, I mean, I'm not sure I understood the question, maybe, but I feel like everything that comes to democratize things is good. I feel like, and that's one example. Like, I feel like the way I shot this movie, it's almost like the same way I was shooting things when I started with a 5D, you know, and having just available light. So I feel like, in a sense, having less, and I hope producers don't hear that, but I feel like in a sense having limitations allow you to also learn other ways and to think of other ways of doing things, and a lot of times get out of what you necessarily learned. And I feel like often when like something happens that I'm really annoyed because something is not what I expected or something wrong happened, and that leads to frustration in the first place, but then you need to think about the solution. I feel like those solutions are often better than the initial idea, like 99% of the time. So I feel like limitations are good until a point, obviously, but I don't know if I understood the question, so I don't know if that's the answer you were expecting. Is that it? Well,
It's more like how the film turned out to be today. Do you think it would have turned out to be the same way 20, 30 years back had the directors and the cinematographers chosen to use the natural lighting as you did?
well, I think so. I don't know, like when you look at stuff like Malik and stuff like that, I mean, Nestor Almendros and people that did this much better than we did, actually. I think so. I feel like it's just a way of seeing things. I don't think there's right or wrong. I feel like there's 200 ways to do stuff. But yeah, I feel definitely technology helped us in a way that we couldn't have done a lot of things that we did. But I don't think, again, it's a limitation necessarily.
Probably time for a couple more if we have them. All right, question just on the side here. So it's far from the microphone. Secret second microphone. Okay, very good.
Sorry, one second.
We should have said all the questions need to be done in the Will Patton voiceover from the movie, if that's possible.
Yeah, so for me personally, I love the movie very much, and there's a lot of like emotion behind it. It's my second time watching it, and I feel the emotion every time. My question to you would be, when you were getting when you were getting into the mood of the shooting this movie, like how did you feel like there was this need to get in the mindset of the characters and like feeling the emotion of what you were shooting, and like, do you often do that sometimes where you will get in the headspace of that of those characters to kind of feel what they feel, so kind of inspires what you shoot?
100%. I feel like, for me, I always say that like it's really hard to think about a way to shoot things if I don't know what they mean in a way. Like because I feel like I kind of just loved movies, and then I realized that the part I liked more in movies was the cinematography, but I didn't come from a photography background, so it's always really hard for me if you tell me like, okay, take a picture of this room, I'll have no idea where to put the camera or which lens to choose or how to shoot it, how to light it. But then if you tell me, okay, take a picture of this room, thinking that was just a screening here and some people cried, and especially like that lady here had a full relationship with the story because the father loses his kid and she lost her kid 20 years ago, and then suddenly I'll be, okay, now I know exactly how to do it. I'll know the lens I need to use, where I should put the camera, because then it's all coming from an emotion, from a story, or for everything. So it would be really hard, and I've been in this situation, of course, before in my life, but to do a movie that I don't fully understand and that I don't really connect with the story in a level, it would be really, really hard, and it is really hard, because it's just like I just get lost. I don't know what to do, basically, you know, like it's not about like, okay, I'll just do a nice framing here. What is even a nice framing, you know? So for sure. And I feel like in this movie, as we were saying before, if I felt so connected to the story in so many levels, like the character being like almost a mirror of our lives, and the whole grief aspect to it, the immigration aspect to it. There was so many points in the movie that I could connect deeply, that was kind of easy to get into the headspace.
That question, like if something from your own life might have been attached to the way you thought about the way you shot it, the visual language, you answered it there.
Yeah, 100%, yeah.
A beautiful answer. We've got probably time for one more question, if anyone has one. One more question in the middle there.
Two really quick ones. There was so much voiceover in that film, so I was wondering to what extent you were thinking about that when you were actually shooting, with the timing of the scenes. And also, can you just tell us a little bit about your choice of shooting stop and the lenses, please?
Voiceover, yes and no, because I was constantly trying to convince Clint to remove the voiceover. So. So I was trying to shoot it as much as possible in a way that he wouldn't need it necessarily. And I'm happy that he actually have it, because I feel like there's things, especially with Will Patton's voice, I feel like there's some stuff that wouldn't be necessarily possible without it. But I was trying not to think, okay, let's do a shot here for the voiceover and stuff like that. And the T-stop. It really varies on what's happening on the scene. Like there's a lot of scenes that we wanted the characters to feel more isolated, so we would have a shallower depth of field. Some scenes we really wanted to make them like just be part of that and almost like kind of camouflage into nature, that we would have more depth of field. So it depends on it really depended on the scene. We didn't have a rule. We had the rule for a lot of other things, but that was more about just like, often we were wide open, especially at night, because we had to, lighting-wise. But yeah, it varied a lot.
I think that may be where we have to bring it to a close, but in the words of the pilot, find something to hold on to. Congratulations on a beautiful film. Good luck with the rest of the award season.
Thank you very much.
Adolpho Veloso and Train Dreams.
Thank you.